All right, this is season two, which it's mind blowing in itself, Paul, of Totally Rewarding Chats. And for those that watched, listened to any of it last year, um, we are surprised to be back after a little hiatus. And to make it more appealing, I've invited Paul Reiman to come along. How's it going?
It's going, and I can't believe I was crazy enough to say yes to join you on this bus ride.
Well, I appreciate that because I think I told you I did this with three episodes to start because I fear commitment. Um, and about 20 some episodes in, I realized, oh crap,
Committed.
yeah, I'm committed. Yeah, like I had no idea what was going on. And so we're in it. But actually, I will say it is super cool. You know, we get to pick cool guests. And I know we joked about you have a long list, and we'll get to that of people we want to chat to as well. Because people are always like, how do you find guests? I'm like, I have no shortage of cool people I want to talk
That's
to.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And sometimes the only way I can coerce them into talking to me is thinking they're on a podcast. So this is great.
It's not about you, Sean, but
Well, yeah, they don't think it's about me, but it's really about me getting to listen to cool people.
that's right.
Um, so I don't know if I covered it on myself because it's weird last year. So I wanted to get people to give us your quick background and where you're at. And then, tell us a little bit about where you're at, family, and, Novo, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. So for the few of you who will pay attention to this that don't know me already, my name is Paul Ryman. I've been thinking about comp for 26 years now. I refuse to update that number anymore, I think, at this point in my life. I've consulted at big firms. I went in house and did it for 12 years as a leader. And now I created my own firm 3 years ago, almost at this stage, to bring a new way of thinking, hence the Novo Insights, that's the name, into the market. And I'm really proud of what we've been able to accomplish and really excited about it. Um, I really care a lot more actually about the things that aren't anything to do with work. I'm a proud father of two small boys. I spend a lot of time coaching soccer teams and making dinners and getting them to and from school, just because that's the phase of life that we are in. When you've got kids in the low double digits, high single digits range, that's just how it works in life, that's for sure. So that's
And
me for those that don't know me.
you have at least one hobby I'm aware of.
That
Um,
I mean, when you're a dad of two boys, like you don't get hobbies, like you get tasks. In many ways.
Claire?
I do. I am a musician, so that's probably the thing that most people that have joined a Zoom call with me is my Zoom profile picture is me as a musician. But even I can make that pretty darn nerdy. The name of the band I was in at that point was the Salary History Band with a D at the end there. See what we did? Because that band was created when all of the rage was the don't ask about pay history. And the band happens to include labor lawyers, so we all shared that in common.
So, as someone married to a lawyer, I, for the life of me, don't know why you chose to spend extra time with them. But I'm 40 years in, so I really can't argue too much about that. That's interesting.
It's special. It's special. That's for sure.
Yeah, and it'll bring different perspective for those I think that I haven't shared. Like all my kids are off the payroll now. So the last one jumped off the payroll a year ago and are like mostly adulting. Probably low odds that they get off the Netflix and the Dunkin' Donuts ever. I don't know how to even kick them off that train. So
That's right. Some subscriptions are lifetime at this
yeah,
point,
well,
I think.
that's the leverage to get them to come home more. The threat
Mm,
of like we'll stop paying for that stuff.
mm.
Um,
I didn't even realize Dunkin' Donuts could be a linked thing.
I will say one of the proudest moments of being efficient with our money, at least, was the other year and talk about cost of living and cost of labor at some point. So, cost of living, I had a daughter that was in New York City. She was at Columbia, and the other one was in Tulsa, already working. And as you do the Dunkin', you get a free coffee. And they had coordinated to make sure that the free coffee was happening in New York City, and the free
Mm,
coffee was never purchased in Tulsa because the difference in price of a large coffee in the two cities was rather different.
look at that. Well played. Like
Yeah,
that's
I was impressed. I'm like, okay, so they're paying for nothing, but they're at least trying to be semi-responsible with our money.
look at
So
that. Look at that. Good to know they're in the game, right? They are they are on your team.
They are. So we will be asking most people at least these three questions. So, and then some spares. But in the speed round, are you a tea or coffee person?
Coffee, 100%. Although iced tea for lunch, right? So coffee in the morning, iced tea middle of the day.
That's the whole thing. No iced coffee?
No, coffee should be warm.
Okay.
My wife said iced coffee only. She won't drink coffee hot. So like between the two of us, we have the full spectrum, I suppose. But yeah, no,
I'm
I
very
don't
like,
drink.
when the daytime high is going to be over 75, I probably drink iced coffee throughout the whole day. If it's colder, I'm a hot coffee person.
See, I'm a little bit of a coffee snob too. So I'm that guy who does like the pour over thing in the morning, and you can't do that well cold. So
No, you have to save it and put it in the fridge. I'm down with you on that.
yeah, I'm too lazy for that.
We always ask, and this is definitely those who know both of us, a different question. Are you a have a weekend away? Are you going to go for a posh weekend away, or please let me take Paul Reiman out camping for a weekend?
Yeah, I think the quote that you have fallen in love with at times is like roughing it to us as a standard Marriott.
Yeah.
Like we my wife went camping once and asked if I wanted to, like with her friend and or I think her brother, and I'm like, no, like God gave me a house so that I don't have to sleep outside.
Which is
Like
funny
that's
because when you talk about like, you can put everything back to comp jokingly. When you talk about our ranges, like for us, we don't generally stay at more than a Marriott. So like our range crossover is right about there before
that's
we
right.
feel uncomfortable, which is pretty interesting.
Totally. My kids don't know what it's like to like we haven't camped in the backyard, right? It's just not my thing. It's
That
not
I
my
never
thing.
got. I'm like, okay, now the perfectly fine house. Like you're not really outdoors because you can see the house. You're not camping, but you're
Yeah.
just not using the house that is right there.
Yeah. Not for me. We are not rough it type people. Now we don't travel much because we have, single digit children. So it's not a vacation, it's a trip. That's for sure. It's more work than it is, but camping is not on the agenda. That's for sure.
And as we segue in, I usually ask people, since the peanut butter spreading, are you a crunchy or creamy peanut butter person?
So this is a weird story for me. I was a hardcore crunchy peanut butter person for the vast majority of my life. Like my wife and I would argue and have two different jars of peanut butter in the house because she's a creamy and I'm a crunchy. My oldest has a peanut allergy. So that completely changed our sort of peanut butter consumption. We don't eat as much of it, but it made no sense to have two jars that we barely ever use because we only ate it when he's out of the house. So I've been converted. Now I will consume creamy peanut butter. I consider it as a sacrifice for my firstborn from the standpoint that like it's just easier to have a one jar that might kill him instead of two jars that might kill him. So
At least you know where it is.
that's right.
I think, now it's been well over a year, so I'm definitely creamy. I know it's about two-thirds, one-third creamy to crunchy. And take from this information what you like. The only place that it was a majority, 80, 90% of the audience attendees wanting crunchy was Colorado. Take what you want from that.
I mean, the brand works there. I mean,
I
that's a
know,
thing.
I know. And the interesting fun fact, usually, I don't share this publicly. I also might be giving away some secret race information, but as an avid triathlete ultra runner, my morning race breakfast is a banana and then a bagel with peanut butter. But the peanut butter has to be the clean top part of a new container because that peanut butter will make you faster than the rest of the peanut butter. That's the best peanut butter.
It's like virgin olive oil. It can't just be olive oil. It has to be like fresh pressed. Like
Yeah, yeah,
it's
it's
got
gotta
to
be
be a
that top
fresh.
smooth part, like truly creamy peanut butter. And I can't, that's been going on so long, Paul. I can't remember. I'm sure it was one of those days where I didn't think I was going to have a great day, open a new jar, had a good day, and from then on it's been. And of course, my wife loves the fact that you might have a two-thirds of a jar that's completely fine, and you're like, I'm
Nope.
sorry. No, that's not okay.
As Bruno Mars once said, it's smoother than a fresh jar of Skippy. Like it's got to be a fresh jar.
I have to add that. So you decided to come in and jump in. I know my goals were to just get to talk to really cool people around the comp tech space and comp space and get kind of a different perspective for everybody, big, small, comp, not comp thing. And that's how this all started out. You jumped in, so what's your goal? If you have a goal.
Yeah, I'm not a big goal setter in general. However, I think my impetus for sort of jumping in here in part is rewards people and non-rewards people have such a great time when we're together and the conversations that occur, right? You're at a World at Work conference, you're at a local association SHRM event, and just the chatter is fun and it's enjoyable, and we learn more than we give ourselves credit for as we are having those conversations. So it's just like, how do we have that happen all the time? Not every day. You get sick of me, and I'd probably get sick of you, but but in a more sustained fashion, right? It's not just twice a year at an event, right? So that's the thought: is how do you keep the conversation moving, going? Because that's the part I love the most about going to those events, and there's no reason to wait for them. So that's my reason for being here, is to be a part of that conversation in an ongoing way.
Awesome. Yeah, for me, it's also, I think about, bringing these perspectives in. So, like at World at Work, to be honest, most of them, they're comp people. There's very few HR generalists. So you get some people dealing with small midco and how does that go? And people out of their industry, people in different regions. And, one, it's kind of cool to hear those perspectives, but also, every so often they hear something and kind of have an oh crap moment like, hey, that's actually applicable to here. And I might be able to think about it a different way. So that's how this all started, was kind of just to your point, just basically having a cup of coffee, jamming out over some cool stuff. And I will add, without giving you a big head, I think, for me it was, do I add someone in, and I wanted someone who's neutral and looking at things across the board, and good, bad, and ugly of all those that are out there across, to be completely neutral. And so that's a big thing for me, is having that neutral perspective. Other than, of course, Novo Insights is cool. So
We'd like to think so. I think I just lost my train of thought. I think the other sort of belief here, there's a lot of content out there for comp people that is just for like within the comp community, and I like how in your past iteration of this in season one and now the thought is a broader conversation. How do we get that CHRO perspective? How do we get that recruiter's perspective? How do we just learn from people who aren't doing the work exactly the same day to day? um, will it be the same learning experience than if you're chatting with somebody who's an expert in something and has something interesting and timely to share? No, but I think the cumulative nature of those not directly attributable conversations is big. And over time, you're like, oh, I appreciated that point of view, or I heard a question a different way. So I think that's one thing that I like about how you've done this in the past, is a more diverse set of people than just in the comp community. I know lots of comp people. I talk to them all the time.
yeah,
It's how do we get more voices engaged in the discussion. So I'm excited about that for
I don't
sure.
know if they can walk a mile in other people's shoes, but at least you can kind of take a small journey. I think I told you this once, but I was presenting at a SHRM, like in the Carolinas, and as someone who's been in comp and ben, obviously that's the most important thing ever, right? And I'm getting ready to go up and present on comp planning, so comp planning jam session, and nothing's more important because I'm presenting on that, right? And they're like, hey, before Sean comes up, I just want to remind you guys the next 4 months. It's 401k enrollment, or 401k audit, benefits enrollment, office management, and active shooter. And I was like, I really don't want to go up there now. Like, and you're like, and it was interesting because you go through and have this discussion with a group of people, but you almost wanted to like turn around and be like, how the hell do you guys do all that? And it's such a good perspective of doing that. And I was just at a World at Work / SHRM event in Atlanta, and there was a mix of people from the Atlanta Comp Association and SHRM, and watching how they go about getting their stuff done and the ability to it's just so, one, HR people are super creative, almost to their detriment over time, because they don't always get resources because they somehow magically get shit done. Like it's almost a detriment. And then watching them in different avenues with different resources and different company sizes get things done in the myriad of ways in which they work problems is cool.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree.
So I know you have a couple of reports out, not plugging your stuff, but I say that because that has taken you, over a year-ish or so. And
Hmm.
so between the two of us, I guess, what is the biggest change you have seen in the last year? As you've kind of gone and looked at things, and as Novo evaluate a bunch of the
Yeah,
market.
yeah. So specific in that comp tech space. I mean, I think there's more feature parity than I think people expect, right? And sorry to sponsor, but like there's a lot of tools that get a lot of good stuff done, right? And I think when you're in house and when I was in house, you felt like the tool you used was either you loved it or you hated it, and there was nowhere in between. And you better believe there's something else out there that's better. And when you do demonstrations with 43 different systems, sometimes the same logo but different use cases, you see a lot of the same stuff. Like one thing that hasn't changed, well, I don't know if it has or hasn't, honestly, because my perspective starts when I started analyzing it, but there's just a lot of feature parity, which is a surprise. So whether that's new or whether that's different, I don't know. But I know it wasn't what we expected, that there's a lot of feature parity. 90% of the work you need to do. If you're talking to the right set of vendors about a problem, they're going to do 90% of it close enough. It's the 10% that you got to figure out. What's your 10%? How is that different than somebody else's? So I think that's an evolution. There's so many players that can do a lot of things really well. It's more, what are your, each organization, what's your problem and how do you find that? Like that, I feel like that's more of an emphasis now than it has been ever
Yeah.
before.
It's interesting because when I mentioned like how we were going to walk through and talk about what the two of us have seen, and then we'll get to like who's coming, I guess. For me, it's kind of big kid toys for all kids. I think over the past year or two, what used to be, hey, you have to spend a lot, and to get, to your point, it wasn't feature parity. It was kind of price, and you had to get way expensive to get all the stuff, and those tools required oodles of integration, which is a highly technical term, by the way,
Oodles,
from
that's it.
development. Yeah, oodles. It's a development measurement unit. Got to be on the inside to know. You had to have all that, and so now what's interesting is you've seen, and for all the business reasons. So I can throw an acronym out, more TAM, more whatever, right? Like the tools are out there, and there's more integration. The data is more ubiquitous to be able to move between the two. And I think that's why you've seen now, if you're a small, mid-sized company, I think there's good and bad with this. You have all access to a bunch of tools now, probably in a price range that you can afford. And now the problem is you have access to a lot of tools to which you can do this. And how do I choose? Because 90% of the tool is the same. How do I differentiate, between all the go-karts lined up at the start line?
That's right. And I think, um, and there's probably a broader theory or thesis here, but for the longest time, the emphasis was on software being flexible so that you can do it any way you want. And I'm starting to see, is that really right? Like maybe it's okay if I have software that does it a certain way, that makes it easier to use, makes an impact in a certain way, but I recognize I'm not going to be right for all people, right? Like, and I don't remember that when I was buying software tools in the, around the 2010-ish era. It felt like everybody was about configurability, flexibility. Whereas
There
now
were
there are
less
people,
of them, right? So I think that what's
yeah,
interesting is there were less tools, right? And so to address everyone's client thing, you had to have it. And now you're getting to the point where I just know in the comp planning is the space that I always look at, and your chart, you're like, can we fit? You're probably thinking, please, no one else come to market. I can't fit anymore in the box, right? And so people can create niches, right? Oh, hey, we do small co, we do mid co, and that's fine, right? And I think that to me is kind of that's also what's changed. But what hasn't changed? So what do you think hasn't changed over the past couple of years?
yeah. What's interesting is like, so on our infographic, for those who aren't aware, we publish an update every quarter of the different vendors like across the comp tech landscape, and there's headers on there about monitor, align, basically do the work, deliver, and engage. That hasn't changed, right? The jobs that comp people or awards people have to do are still the same. We haven't been automated away yet, right? So we still have to pay attention to market data, build structures, manage job descriptions, do comp cycles. Like all that work is the same. Which it feels like that can't be true forever, right? There's a point at which the work's going to change underneath us. I think we're at the front end of that, where some of the assumptions we've made about like the work we have to do, like, is it an annual cycle? Is it a quarterly cycle? Do you need cycles? Like, this isn't about an opinion there, but I think people are asking those questions now of, have we just been taught to do it this way? And now is the time for us to take a big step back and say, is there a different thing that comp people should be doing at this point?
Well, like Yeah, I say it's, the same goal is still there, right? We want to, equitably pay people competitively, right? Like for what the work they're doing, right? Okay, that probably isn't going to change. What's now been faced, I think there's a couple of things. One, there are different ways to do it. Like I usually use the example of comp planning. I haven't even asked you. I know you're the trivia guy, so this is a little payback maybe. Um, do you know when the comp planning process started, like an annual comp planning process?
Ooh. I'm a trivia guy, but not a historian. History is where I depend on others. But I would this has been around a long time, that's for sure.
So it's an industrial revolution issue. It was all anniversary based, and out of whether you want to call it efficiency at work or laziness at home, it got too hard, right? So with factories, now all of a sudden you've got workforces that have a certain size, and they were like, screw this. Every day is somebody's anniversary and raise, and of course they didn't have. That's pre even Lotus 1, 2, 3, right? In the early 1900s. So like now you've got paper and ledgers and trying to keep track of everybody. So they were like, screw this, once a year. We're going to go with it. To your point of how long does it go? And then, of course, I'm of the age where I remember the super secret, highly secure manila envelope with the twisty, like that no one could break into if you wrote "don't open."
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's how people sent, the stuff around. So I'm with you. Like I think there's time to reimagine it. And what used to be the limiting factor for your pay philosophy and what you could do was your Excel skills. And now, the technology can go back. So I do think there is like a time now for people to, what hasn't changed is that our goal. What has changed is how you get from point A to point B, which actually could involve 365 or six, iterations throughout the year.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, it seems ripe for a change, right? And that's not just when we're picking on comp planning, but a lot of it feels ripe for the change. The old total rewards portal, total comp statement. Like we've been talking about that for a long time. Nobody feels great about what they have, and I've yet to hear one employee like come up to me when I tell them what I do for a living at a cocktail party. Like, oh, I can't believe my company does this. Like it's the greatest thing ever. Like it feels like there's a need, but nobody loves it. Like so,
Well,
there's so
actually,
many.
every box you have in there, you can go from data, the new players and data, and how you migrate to how you do comp planning to how you do benchmarking. We've had this. Depends who you talk to out there. Do you market price a role or a grade or a job or a person or like all this stuff is sitting out there ripe for innovation and or disruption. But at the end of the day, the goal is still how do I pay that person for what their worth is equitably compared to the others.
Totally,
But underneath
totally.
that, like it's a mess. And not a mess. It's like complicated.
That's right. As I always say, if we watch LinkedIn for the people who are being called crazy, that's probably where the market's going. So who's out there is like coming up with some crazy idea right now to do it differently? There's probably a germ of an idea in it.
I don't know. As we're talking this through, I keep thinking of more and more guests because, of course, at the same time, especially if you think about EU, pay transparency, and some of
Totally.
the places here, there's new cool ways to maybe do it better. But are you going to be throttled back because you have legislation that says, we gotta put these people in bigger buckets and
Yeah. Or
cohorts?
even, a completely different, example. But last week I was speaking at this will date when we're recording, but I was speaking at the World at Work Sales Comp Conference. One question was like, would you ever take salespeople off of commission? And I think my response, if I remember at the time, was either you are a genius or you're crazy. It's one of the two, because who does that? But maybe there's a germ of an idea there, right? Maybe there's a reason that you wouldn't want to sort of structure pay the way we've always thought about pay for salespeople.
I don't know if he was there. Reese Bacon, I think, went there, and superhuman being. Hopefully, we won't tag him on here because I don't want him to get a big
But
head.
I did catch him eating two desserts, by the way, which is a
Oh, we
very
definitely got to call
difficult
him
thing to
out for that.
find.
But he's
Yeah,
had that concept, I think, in the past too, and,
yeah,
and brought that up. And so, like, it is really cool. And then you start going about it, and you're like, and what if it was just bonus and company and team bonus and kind of
totally.
like total, But now I think the tools, as we kind of move into like, what do we think is going to change for tech going forward? I think what has changed again is like, not to say comp people weren't strategic, but at some point you were like, I had so much to do and the tech wasn't caught up and the tech was very limiting in what I could do anyway. Now, the tech is kind of allows you to do more, but now you have to step back and be like, well, what is more? type of thing. So where do you see tech going the next year or two? Like, what do you see as the big things? And I can't believe we are 25 minutes in, and you know what we haven't said.
I've been waiting to see who does it
I know, no,
first.
no. Well, I didn't say it though.
Should we like say it together so we're not like incriminating? But
I'm gonna make you say it first.
all right, I'll bite. So I think the next 12 months is all about, is AI a toy or a tool? Right. So is it something that you just play with for novelty and make funny cat memes and laugh at them, or are you actually going to get something that makes an impact? Right. How are you going to actually save time using it? And there are examples where that's happening, but I think right now, to your point, like everybody's still trying to figure out like what is this going to make better so that I can decide what's next. But this is the year. The next 12 months is when that proof comes to life. Like what actual workloads, if I could use that term, from your comp team will this make more efficient? Maybe not go to zero, but make more efficient. Um,
I think it's I think it's the more efficient, and I think the piece, probably for another discussion is, the generative versus agentic AI piece too. And I think people are
mhm.
still getting their heads around that because, to your point, like the number one thing people have done is use generative to make cool cat memes, or things like that, right? And it's generating the closest I would say in that space to being applicable so far is like if you haven't at least tested job descriptions with AI, like you got to do it. If nothing else, for a learning experience and prompting experience. But the agentic side to be able to take a large amount of data, um, and run a process that you couldn't do before, like hey, equitably you know take 5% of the money from the bottom 20% of my company and give it to the top 3% of my individuals, you know using position and range. Like, do you know how long that would take you? And what's that going to cost? And you're like, oh, actually, take it from the bottom 15%. Like, that's 4 weeks, right? Like, you have thousands. So I think that's cool. I think going forward, I actually think and to make it harder, you know, platform plays are going to be able to pull in multiple sets of data, but also point solutions will have the ability to be a little bit more ubiquitous too. And so you can kind of pick and choose, again, depending on your need, do you need it's all going to be, again, that last 10% of the work, I think is going to be that you mentioned earlier, the differentiation. You're going to spend 90% of your time figuring out that last 10%, and how it works best for you.
Yeah, I also think right now most, whether it's an existing solution that's building AI within their platform, or whether it's a company experimenting, we're still doing AI in its little silos. This is either a generative play, an agent play, just an old school ML sort of form of AI play. The future, if you think about the jobs we do as comp people, they are multi-agent, right? Very rarely are you just creating something, right? You're creating something based on an analysis of some data, and then you have to take action on it, right? That's a multi-agent play. So not just building a narrow AI, but how do you get multiple things talking together? So instead of the question being take X% of the money and give it to my top people, like that's not hard. Like that just, it does it faster when you do it through AI. The question I'm waiting for us to be able to solve is look at my past years of merit cycle
Yes.
outcomes, identify what created an impact in terms of lowering the likelihood of attrition based on what you knew when you did it and what they got it, and implement that, right? So it's like you are telling it a natural language question that generates sort of a deep analysis view, right? A predictive model in itself that then the AI can sort of come back and recommend, oh, that means Sean should get this raise and Paul should get that. Like that will come. No one's doing that yet. That will come because that's the way that these technologies are evolving. You build it, fit for purpose first, and then you figure out how to stitch them together. We're in that play now of the multi-agent bot, where people are having the robots talk to each
On
other.
top of that, I think the ability to pull in more data from the business and other places, right? So performance isn't going to be
Hmm.
be less subjective. It's going to be more objective because I can pull in. I mean, I'm old enough to remember like compute power was a problem. It's not, I don't, compute power is not a problem for any one organization right now. Like you could talk about if I grabbed all the data from everyone on the planet and do something, how long it might take, although we could, right? But to be able to take even the largest company and talk about pulling in business data aligned to that, sure, it might take 3 minutes, right? But now, we're at a point where we're upset if things take 500 milliseconds and not 400 milliseconds. So I think there's the ability to pull this stuff in, which all leads to all this tech, really still starting to align to almost, company individual, department individual, specific comp plans. To your point, going back and look at the analytics, because my pet peeve in comp planning, I know we said would not necessarily just be there, but I think it's the thing that people hate the most, managers and in the company, managers and the comp team. And they always are like so thankful to have that shit done. They don't go back for another 10 months to look and be like, was our hypothesis last year, did it work? We
Totally.
gave Sean a 0 because he deserved it and we think he'll leave. And what we realized is even though we didn't think it was possible, Sean actually did less work this year because he got 0, right? Like that's the thesis you want to start figuring out over time. So I think I'm with you. I think it's going to be this really cool application. And actually, the way I've said it is AI at first came out and it was pick your hammer of choice, and that's how you built your house. You got one hammer and everyone looked at it, and now it's like, how do I use it as every type of hammer, nailer, screw gun that you need to build the house in the proper way? And that's just going to take time.
Yeah. And it's not one tool or one robot that's going to make the difference. I remember when I was in house during comp planning time, every day from 6 to 10 or 11 p.m. was spent answering questions, right? From all over the world, those managers, those leaders that knew me as the comp guy. And that's just when I could get to it, was at night, right? And it was a global business, whatever, it didn't matter. I think about the questions that I answered and how little time I would have to spend answering those today, because that is a chatbot waiting to happen. Like, and it's easy to build, right? I'm just going to load in all the facts about my cycle. 90% of those questions go away. But in 2012, I had to answer them all myself, right? So, like, the opportunities for freeing up time and
It's
decreasing
interesting though. I'm
friction are
curious the
huge.
speed. I think the speed at which it happens isn't as fast as people think, only because we all know, jokingly, the comp team is the overstaffed team, right? With the most extra budget. And so, there are these real weird nuances. There's a lot of tools out there to be purchased, new data, new everything. They don't have any budget. And they also don't have time. And if the market's softer, they're not going to get any help.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
I do think there's this kind of push on how do they see the forest for the trees, because they're just HR as a whole. I'll put them all in there. I haven't, in 30 years, I haven't talked to an HR department. It's like, well, we got some free time coming. How do you think we should best use it? Like, I've never heard that.
No, that's true. I do think when we talk about people building an AI strategy, like the first part is talk to your vendors, right? Don't try to find more money. Use the money you've got and push them to say, what are you doing to make my life better? And then the other, it's less about like automating away people. It's more about just make your life a little better, right? So I would still have a job in my corporate role if I made that comp process easier to communicate. I would just get more sleep. Or during open enrollment, like I still to this day like hurt in my heart for my benefit manager at every company I've been to, because the number of times they have to answer the same question and then say, but I can't make this choice for you, you need to decide what's best for you. Like, that's just a life quality creator if you can build technology that can personalize that experience for that employee without you having to answer every question, right? So it's not about saving money, it's more about saving that person's sanity
All
at that point.
inconsistency and answer and all kinds of things.
Totally. Totally.
So we have a list of like 40 some people already. I think our goal is to do 40 some shows this year, of cool people we have. I noticed, it's long and varied. So I'm stoked to get through that.
Yeah.
So obviously, if anyone is listening and has someone on their list that they think we should try to talk to, have at it. Who would you like to talk to in industry? Then I know I usually say alive or dead, but I don't have any way to do a podcast with anyone dead. So I'm hoping your people are alive. anyone that you would talk to if we could get anyone on.
Gosh, I mean the people that I think we're both sort of blessed to have sort of good wide network. So the like of the comp people, I feel like we've got good access. Um, two sides. So I'm gonna not answer exactly the question you asked, but I'm gonna answer a little bit different. Like I'm really excited about some of the legends that are on our list, like people that have just been doing this for a long time, that we've admired, for our whole careers. Like it's exciting to just, I love hearing those stories, right? About what they've done and why they've done it and what they've seen over time. I'm super excited about that. And I'm excited about some of the, like, at the front end of the show, the non-comp people, right? Let's get a perspective from a CHRO of one, right? Like they are the HR department kind of person. Like how are you tackling these problems? That diverse perspective, right? So I'm pretty excited about that. Um, that's not a name. I'm being careful here, I guess. But those are the personas that I'm excited about speaking
Okay.
to.
Um, I think for me, we have added some. I think this year of people that I really just want to get out there and learn on. And I think as we kind of preview who's coming, we've got Paul mentioned practitioners. We generally will have some consultants on, but actually, what's cool is we've got a lot of people coming that have built comp tech around this, which is always interesting to see how they've built comp tech, because obviously they're trying to, theoretically make money. And so they're reaching out to a large number of clients to try to solve those problems to which they can charge for. And so we've got some of those folks too, which is always cool to hear about their journey, at what point that they decided to go build tech, and then how they're building tech in a competitive market. Like I'm always interested to do that, because I won't lie. I have, while I've been a developer forever, there is zero chance I was ever going to take that leap out. So it's always super cool for me to talk to people like that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. The builders, right, is sort of how in my brain I've sort of named some of those, right? Like I'm a super reluctant entrepreneur myself, so I just get a lot of fascination from people that can tackle something like that. Just because
And
it's
now I'm going to
so
do.
uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, I want nothing to do with that. And then I'm going to put a shout out. I would love to talk to Richard Masters, who's the CEO of the English Premier League, because
Yeah.
I did some work when I was at a prior large consulting firm, because I did not check, with one of the professional associations that was out there, in benchmarking, and how they have this kind of external thing going on with all the players and all that stuff that's in there, and the money that floats around. But then they actually run a business with all these other sub businesses, and there's a bunch of HR-ish stuff that runs around in there. And so both from a soccer fan standpoint, um,
Totally.
getting that fan and talking to them, but how they actually run that business when you've got astronomical numbers on one end, and then you've got people working in stadiums, or people in the front office of the Premier League. Like you've just got this wide
Yeah.
variation. I
Yeah.
think that would be cool. So that's my shout out if anyone's got a plug in there.
Yeah. The one, I think, and in theory, I could take this as a challenge because I took this class when I was in college years ago. But like, I would love to get one of these like economist, sort of behavior scientist people to really poke at all the stuff that we make up. Like, does it really make sense to motivate the way we do? And there's prevailing theories, or there's some contrarians out there, right? Dan Pink has a theory of motivation, and Alfie Kohn.
Kahneman was the one that I like to follow. Kahneman, before he's not, we're not going to get him on,
Right,
but
that would fall into the category we're
yeah,
not
yeah.
going to get. But like,
So I'm down with that. I do think that, like, there is some interesting. We always talk about the practical, and you and I are kind of similar from the I love the math side of it, but now you've got this behavioral side that I
that's
think would
right.
be really interesting to
That's
get.
right. And I highly doubt that Professor Stephen Levitt remembers that nerdy Paul Reiman from 1998 Econ 210, if memory serves me correct. If you're listening, Stephen, and I know you aren't, but if somebody knows him, put in a plug. We can get Freakonomics Man on here. That would be a dream come true. That's for sure. But
All right.
we'll
So
make it
those are
happen.
our lists. If people have them, feel free to hit both of us up. So we are excited. And as we close down, so we have William Tincup and Ryan Leary, who head up Work Defined, as kind of the next one. And then we kind of run in through a bunch of stuff. I'll toss out there that right after, soon after, I don't want to say right after, because someone will send me a note. Of the one listeners that might be listening the first show, someone will send me a note. It won't be right after, but Terry Zipper from Sapient, who will be at HR Tech, and she's obviously a superhuman being. We'll catch her and get her perspective. So there's already a good start of some folks, and then like I said, just a giant laundry list. So I'm super fired up.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you want to add before we?
No, I think to those you made the comment about the event you spoke at with all the things coming up. Like, let's not be remiss. This is the beginning of sort of fire season for all reward people, right? So if you're in the comp space, maybe you're wrapping up your year, but you're already being asked about budget for next year. If you're a benefit person, it's prime time. Like, you were locking stuff down to get ready for OE. If you're in rewards, you didn't get your off season because you run in counter cycles. But like, by the time this airs, it's going to be the rubber's on the road for folks. So we
Like
appreciate.
the thing is, the irony of that is you can almost pick, 12 of the 12 months that are fire season. There's like no time. There's almost no time in that space.
July was the one month that I sort of had a little bit of a break in my operating career, but I had to engineer it that way. Like, you kind of you had to plan some things to make it work. But yeah, the seasonality is real across all those spaces. But certainly fall always feels to be a little bit
Fall, and
special.
especially benefits people. All the prep, all the work you've done all year hits open enrollment, and um, God bless everybody in that space. I tell people all the time that the analogy I use in IT is for people to get a perspective is, has anyone listening ever sent an email to IT and said, "Hey, thanks, emails run for the last 12 months. I really appreciate it." And that's the same for comp. Like, it's a tough gig when you're doing well when nobody talks to you. Like
Totally.
that's
I had a lunch club at my Morningstar stop with the person in procurement, the person who ran IT, me as sort of rewards. Like, we called it the misery club, like, where we had lunch once a month and talked about all the emails we didn't get of people
yes.
appreciating our work. So
Well, I'm stoked. I'm super stoked you're here. I am looking forward to it. So we're going to sign off for today, and we will start up next time with William and Ryan, and then we'll just start through a litany as we go through.
yeah, thanks, John. This is fun.
Thanks all.